right, all right. All right, ladies, thank you for tuning in with us. This is your very own editor-in-chief, Ashley Ali. We are tuned into Pout Mag Radio.
My name is Rebecca Goebbels, and I'm a member of the UMKC Innovation Center team. I work at the Innovation Center's Small Business Development Center, and I'm delighted to be with everybody today to talk a little bit about the forthcoming KC, oh gosh, it's got a long name and I messed it up, Kansas City Minority Business Resiliency Grant that opens this coming Monday, August 17th, exactly at noon. It's an opportunity to get some grant funds for your for-profit business if you are in the Kansas City metropolitan area and owned majority by entrepreneur of color.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Once again, thank you, Rebecca, for taking your time to come on here to do the interview and also let us know about the great things that UMKC is offering with this grant and hopefully some additional things that'll be coming later on down the line. So first and foremost, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the grant. We do know it's for minorities of color, but kind of go more in depth and tell us about it.
Oh, happy to. And I am going to get my reminder sheet in front of me real quick, which I should have had. Apologies. And so what we're doing, it's $100,000 total loan pool. So it is a wonderful start, but to be forthright, we also know that it is a small pool. Our goal is to let people starting again Monday, August 17th at noon. Go online to umkcinnovates.com/grant and begin to apply for a grant of between $500 and $5,000. It's for companies that have been harmed by COVID and might be able to benefit. And so from funds to improve their businesses, because so many people were running excellent businesses and then COVID hit, and maybe they need funds to switch from bricks and mortar to being able to deliver, to be able to do an online order website, or need potentially new investment in technology to be able to do a service remotely, or any of a million things. But there's a resource for that. And the reason I keep mentioning that this opens on August 17th, exactly at noon, is that because the pool is small and the way to be most equitable, considering the need is great and the pool is small, is to only accept the first 100 applications. There is a sample application on the website at umkcinnovates.com/grant. Where you can go right now and start to gather your thoughts. You can even pre-type this stuff into your own document somewhere and just be ready to cut and paste it if you want. But really want to emphasize that this is exclusively for companies that are majority owned by entrepreneurs of color. So that's 51% or more. A question I got on an online forum is, what does of color mean? And so one of the things that would, I think, probably be helpful for the audience to know about is that for this opportunity, we're using ethnically disadvantaged minorities as defined by the federal government. Right, so there are actually some definitions for that. And so we're using the Fed rules. And the Fed rules include that those minorities include Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, and subcontinent Asian Americans. Another thing that majority owned by an entrepreneur of color means, though, is that nonprofit organizations run by minority individuals, unfortunately, do not qualify for this because you don't own a nonprofit.
Okay.
You control it, and in exchange for controlling that in the public's interest, you get some tax benefits and whatnot, but it's not something that's actually owned. And so I want to be clear that we wish that these parameters were able to include everybody, if I had my way, everybody in town who meets these criteria would get some dollars. But my personal checkbook is not of that size. And I'm not the boss of everything. But genuinely, to think about meeting the parameters of minority owned to the letter of the law, you don't own a nonprofit, which really, I get that there might be frustration about that, because so many minority controlled nonprofits are doing excellent work for their own communities and our city as a whole. Kansas City would not be the same place without these entrepreneurs who often work harder in circumstances that are made more challenging in ways that some of us would never be aware of, and give back to a degree that we could all be proud of, and create a sense of community that we benefit from, whether we know it or not.
So that brings me to, we've already went over what is the grant, the Minority Business Resiliency Grant. So you
the longest name ever. That's what it is.
So you broke that down for us. You also broke down some of the qualifications and who's allowed to apply. Okay, so that brings me to, we're all in this pandemic right now, this stinking pandemic. So my next question is, how has COVID-19 affected Black-owned small businesses in Kansas City, just from the information you've collected while working with different business groups and individuals?
Gotcha. So the question is, how have Black-owned businesses been impacted?
That's
so, because some of the impacts are different depending on minority group, right? So typically language is not necessarily a barrier in the Black entrepreneur community, but think about all the things that could happen to anybody, right? So wait, my foot traffic is down, my sales are down, everybody's postponing buying something, I have to spend money to change my business model. So all of those same things are happening to entrepreneurs of all stripes. But simultaneously, there are cultural things happening that have been happening forever in the Black community of the United States. And you're being forced to deal with how you may feel about what's happening in the news, and still having to be a person who is solving problems for customers and doing what you can for employees, all while dealing with the additional burden of things that are happening in the news, and simultaneously already having to navigate some things that relate to whether intended or not, things that are truly structurally not equal. And so that's kind of the environment that we've seen Black entrepreneurs in particular deal with, and trying to find resources. And as it comes to disaster financing,
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, as it comes to disaster financing, maintaining a relationship with a bank and the way that you might choose to manage a business financially. And there's just a number of things that vary from culture to culture and what's expected, and what makes the most sense culturally. So for example,
we haven't seen a lot of grants and loans. A lot of Black businesses are not getting those funds.
No, statistically, you are much less likely. Those funds went largely to large corporations, I mean, that's an entity structure, to large companies. And they went largely to white Americans. And part of that, I tend to personally believe that while that may not have been intended, that we're all responsible for the result. And so then there's some things about having back office things set up, like clean books, so that you can just, you need my financials, here you go. Some of that is just considered a daily thing to just do in some cultures versus some others, right? And so like having some of those mechanics of business set up feels like something that in some cultures you might set up first, and in some others you're like, hey, I'm doing well. And then when COVID hit, you're like, oh wait, now I need that. And so they were behind the 8 ball in a lot of ways in terms of just some back office infrastructure stuff that you don't need until you need in some cases. And in this case,
Now,
it's desperately required.
Is that like, since you're in the industry as far as business consulting, is that something that you see a lot of from our culture?
Yes. Not just Black entrepreneurs by any means, but I see it quite a
higher
bit.
Percentage.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, truth be told, and this is just the personal experience of Rebecca. Right?
Okay, exactly. We want to hear the truth about it. So I don't want this to be something you're saying just your.
Yeah, and then like suddenly everybody's coming for me.
No, this is actually an experience because you're working with businesses. This is information, gathering information that you collected from working. So that's what I wanted to hear.
Well, and part of the thing that I see, because there are some really admirable reasons why that turns out to be the case, though. So I want to be really clear that in a situation where you don't have the same starting point economically.
Yes, as our counterparts, that's true.
Right? So when you don't have the exact same starting point and you're still trying to get ahead, it demands a different level of creativity, a different level of find a way. And some of the ways that are found aren't structured the way that you learn in business school. And there's a lot of ways to get something done and not have books that look like this or books at all. And that comes from a place of having to find a way. And so, yes, there are reasons why some companies might not have had the same back office infrastructure set up, but that comes from being entrepreneurs who are tenacious and going to be successful no matter what hurdle is put in their path. And so I want to be really clear that, yes, I see a lot of folks whose books are abysmal or non-existent, but that's because they're like, hey, I'm making money. And between going to get an accountant and getting another customer, I chose to get another customer. And that is admirable in a lot of ways that people have been successful.
And you know why? I believe it's because once you get over the hump of you not thinking in your head or either your surroundings, knowing that there's not a lot of resources and you're wanting to come into business, but once you get over that hump and you're able to be successful in it and see yourself making that dream come into reality, it's like, I'm here, so I got to keep it going. I got to keep going. So you do sometimes tend to forget, let me make sure I have this set up, or let me go back and check up on this. Because myself, I've done it too. And it's kind of hard when you're new in business and you don't have everything set up. And most business owners don't have enough money to pay a small business owner.
No, and you're just trying to survive. Like any young company is just trying to survive. And there are reasons systemically why entrepreneurs of color have a whole different layer of just trying to survive on top of what it is to be an entrepreneur. And with a survivor mindset, it creates this amazing creativity, but it tends to also create a short-term point of view because you're always looking for the next fire. Right? Like, okay, what's going to happen? I can do this. I should maybe do some long-term tax strategy. It's just not where your head's at when it is a completely rational response to the set of circumstances. But it also means some things that when you apply for financing and they're like, okay, well, just send me your books. And you're like, it's all really well-meaning people. In most cases, of course, there are always exceptions, but it's really well-meaning people trying to do the best that they can, not
and I think it's not just, when it comes to that, I don't think it's just the African-American community. I think it's anyone that's new into business that really hasn't got their feet wet, sometimes could actually go through that. And I've just from going to going into one of the UMKC classes, a lot of that we learned in the business classes, a lot of individuals like, I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
So we were grateful for the resources.
Real talk. If you would like help starting a business, the UMKC Innovation Center, especially for starting, the new venture class and the entrepreneurial mindset class are excellent for helping cutting through, because we have no interest in being businessy. We just want to help you make some money. And we will speak to you with that level of frankness in a way that I think for some can be a lot more accessible than people who are all official sounding. Because, it's
I get
it's real talk all the time in Rebecca's office.
Oh, yes, it is. She's something else. But a good something else. We have fun. She's a lot of fun.
And you can have a great time as we're like, hey, I don't know how this is going to work out. Like, me either. Let's Google it. Okay, the real talk for a second. We do more than just Google things. We actually do know how to inherently help you. I was kidding.
Now, also, that brings me to why we were talking about that conversation. The lack of knowledge, too. The lack of knowledge. Some people have dreams and want to do things, but they haven't had that example of what a business owner looks like. Mm-hmm. And they think in their mind, they have to be this person in a suit that has it all together. But you realize business owners are everyday average people just like you and I that just have to dream and want to make it come alive.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Business owners look like anybody who has the action orientation and will to solve problems for other people in exchange for money. That is what an entrepreneur looks like.
I've seen in a lot of people, a lot of businesses say they have applied for these PP loans and these loans and grants that are out. Why do you think a lot of people are being denied? And there's a lot of people that I've seen that got a hell of a lot of money that should have been denied.
Well, I can't speak to that. Like, not going there. But some of the reasons that I have seen for denial is front end misunderstanding of what the funds were for and how you would qualify for them. So some of it was misunderstanding on the front end, and it could be through communication channels that weren't effective for the audience, or it could be the audience didn't like the answer and therefore did not internalize it. Right? Like, I don't know which side, but there were some communication things I think on the upfront, including all of these disaster loan parachutes were built after the country had jumped off a COVID cliff. So I want to be frank, a lot of these items were not smooth. However, I am going to spot some grace for some people building a program as it was going out the door at the same time. That said, why do I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially of color, didn't qualify? I can't say for sure, but I think, again, some of that back office infrastructure stuff, like, oh, well, here, I'll just send you my payroll records. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who, when you're in that find a way mindset, maybe aren't paying people in officially documentable ways. I think that there are some things about how record keeping was like, oh, well, this is a common thing. This is not specific to people of color, but what do you mean I say I have a loss on my taxes, right? I don't want to have to pay taxes, so I tell the federal government I have a loss. Well, and then you're like, okay, what amount of profits did you have? Maybe that'll be a part of this. Profits? I mean, you can't be like, hey, federal government, I don't make any money. Hey, federal government, can I have some money? That is for people of all kinds. That is a core misunderstanding of what your tax return is saying to the federal government that cuts across all people. Everybody hopes that it works like, hey, my tax return says I don't make any money, so I don't have to pay you. But when I need something, you're going to help me, right? No, it's solidly the answer to that. At least from the feds.
Okay, so now that brings us to, I know I'm
probably going to get fired after this interview, just so you know.
Oh, no. That's not the intent. So please, people from UMKC, she's a great person and a great consultant. This is not the intention.
Yeah, look, here's heard it here. Please put it in my file before you talk to me on Monday.
Okay, so what I wanted to know was, with this grant being created and offered, how many jobs do you think that this is going to create in Kansas City?
To be frank, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. And it's not tied to that as a result.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things to be really cognizant of, I mean, jokes about me getting fired aside,
Mm-hmm.
things to be really cognizant of is that in wanting to help, you've got to be really careful not to say, but you need to be helped the way I want to help you. And by saying that these funds need to be tied in some way to number of employees or that kind of thing, starts to impose some point of view about what good looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so very specifically, there is nothing required regarding employment of others or specific reporting. Like, we'll of course ask after the fact, you know, but there's nothing on the front end of this related to employment. You've got to be really careful to make sure that in an effort to help, that we aren't trying to recreate the need in our own image.
Gotcha. It makes a lot of sense. Bringing up who's behind this grant, Kaufman.
Yeah.
They are doing some wonderful things continuously throughout the years they have, in the arts, and entrepreneur world.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a lot overall. And they pay attention. They always come in right on time.
The UMKC Innovation Center has been in all of our sister programs under the umbrella, right? So that's the Small Business Development Center, Procurement Technical Assistance, Digital Sandbox, Whiteboard to Boardroom, KC SourceLink, Capital Match, on and on and on, right? So that's all individual programs under the Innovation Center umbrella. We, for decades, have been lucky enough to have a beautiful relationship with a world-class foundation that's conveniently across the street from us, but they are the exact organization that anybody who supports entrepreneurs would love to have a relationship with because of their dual purpose for both education and entrepreneurship. And it's just a wonderful mission from the jump. As it pertains to this particular resiliency grant opportunity for minority entrepreneurs, the foundation conversations started with deep interest in responding as quickly as possible, and some resources like Meet a Pro and some other things that are happening through some of our sister programs were able to hit street level ASAP. And then developing a program like this took a little bit more time, but the goal was, what can we do right now and what can we do effectively that will truly help?
Information can take you a long way, and if you're willing to share the information, kudos to you. So like I said, I'm just excited that these things are happening, and I'm seeing less individuals say that they can't go into business. I'm seeing a lot of people that are squaring their shoulders and saying, I'm going to try this thing. I'm going to make something happen.
Legit.
So I'm excited to see that.
Person to person, you should have them call me, because one of the things I'm measured on is how many people I help start a business. So, oh my gosh, not only would I have done it anyway, but that would really help me out personally.
She is something else. You're going to enjoy the class. Trust and believe. And
you're going to learn some good things. Yeah, trust and believe. I like where your head's at with that.
And you'll learn some good things to take your business to the next level. Rebecca, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up, but thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. This was great fun, and it was so nice to finally catch up and even through Zoom, see you.
Yes.
Teamwork makes the dream work, my friend.
That's right. Teamwork.
So nice to see ya.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. You enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
You too.
See you later. Bye.